dear friends, the Law and Technology Committee welcomes you all to Consilience 2013. Today is the second day of the conference, and this particular day is being dedicated to the theme of data protection in India. Yesterday, we had 3 sessions on cybersecurity. We saw Mr. Jacob Applebaum, the co-founder of Tor project and the core member of WikiLeaks, address the session on cybersecurity and surveillance. We had the former chief of ROG, Mr. Hormus Tharakan. We had Mr. Saika Datta, bureau chief of DNA newspaper. And we had Ms. Maria Zaino from Center for Internet and Society. It was a wonderful start to this conference, and amongst the audience we have Colonel Mathew Thomas, Mr. Somasekhar VK, who were present yesterday as well. They are witness to this fact that yesterday's day was completely devoted to cybersecurity, and it was a wonderfully organized session. Today we are looking at 4 sessions on data protection in India. We have panelists from all the fields. We have practitioners, academicians, people from law firms. They will be addressing some of the most important concerns which are prevalent in the data protection scenario in India as of now. Consilience is an annual conference organized by the Law and Technology Committee, which is a student group here at National Law School of India, University, Bangalore. The focus of Consilience 2013 is essentially on the legal and policy issues relating to data protection and cybersecurity in India. As a conference organized by undergraduates, Consilience is unique, an event completely planned and managed by the students of National Law School of India, University. Since its inception, Consilience has been unparalleled in terms of the sheer magnitude of legal input which goes into the event, and at the same time, it is our primary endeavor to address the needs and concerns of all the stakeholders, focusing on a more practical rather than a mere theoretical analysis of issues. With that, I would just like to say that we are honored to have all the luminaries gracing this occasion today. Without further ado, I request Colonel Mathew Thomas to give the keynote address. Thank you.
It appears that a lot of law students and law faculty and visitors here are all good Christians. You're maintaining the Sabbath according to the Lord. Nice to know that. So Sunday is a wrong day possibly to have a workshop, but I think it's a nice way of spending time rather than whiling away. I'm really deeply honored and touched by being invited to give the keynote address here. Actually, Justice A.P. Shah, whom I wanted to hear very much, was the person who was supposed to do that. But unfortunately, he is indisposed, and I'm the 12th man in this cricket team, so I've come here to do on his behalf, but I can hardly match up to anywhere at his level. First of all, I'm a lay person with hardly any knowledge of law or qualifications. I'm thankful to Jasraj and his team and this institution for giving me this opportunity to be here, to participate in this excellent workshop or conference or seminar and share a few thoughts as a lay person would. I was trying to find out what's the meaning of consilience. Any idea? In fact, I was asking Jasraj and he gave me some idea. Anybody? I would like to have this, but although it's a keynote, I don't like to lecture down to people. I rather prefer some kind of an interactive way of hearing. Anybody, any idea of consilience? We've been here one day, we should know what it means. Well, if you look up various dictionaries in the internet or otherwise, it tells you that you're putting a lot of inputs from various sources together to arrive at some kind of a common understanding. It's a oneness or jumping together of various bits of facts and evidence. That's the meaning of consilience. And I think in that sense, it's an extremely good title. Whoever did this extremely good title. I understand the word has a Greek origin. So that's why probably it's Greek and Latin to us, the meaning of the word. Okay. Now, in data protection and cyber security, what data are we trying to protect? Whose data? Why protect data? These are some of the things which arise. And what do we understand by cyber security? And why do we need these two phrases? Data protection and cyber security, how are they different? If they are the same, why are we repeating that in the same title? So yesterday this came up in the context of the IT Act. The policy for cyber security is being evolved now, not yet through. A draft policy is there, whereas the IT Act has been passed and the IT rules have been passed. So somebody was asking the question, have we put the cart before the horse by having the Act passed, you're doing it and then thinking? Well, that's not really true. The government also thinks sometimes. Cyber security has a lot to do with the safety of assets. When I mean safety of assets, it could be informational assets, it could be tangible physical assets which store or transmit that data. So that's what cyber security is about, as I understand it. It's fencing these assets, preventing intrusions, preventing damage or theft of those assets. Whereas when you talk of the data protection, yes, cyber security also involves a certain amount of data protection because data is inherent in those assets. But data protection has a slightly different connotation. Yes, it deals with the data of the cyber assets, but it also deals with data of individuals. And we look at protection of that data. I think Jasraj has covered a lot of what I had to say, but this thank you does not mean that I'm going to end here. I put this slide as thank you because I'm deeply grateful to all of you for coming here on a Sunday morning rather than lazing around and watching the latest serial on murder or arson or root or whatever it is, kidnapping. These are the things which go on in serials today, and or going out for a dosha or some such thing, coming and listening to some boring talk. So thank you very much, and thank you once again to Jasraj and his team and to this institution. Now, yesterday these were the topics which were covered. Cybersecurity in India, what is the current scenario? There was a special address by Vikram Asrani which was very good. He gave an industry perspective to it. Those of you who attended it would have seen it. And that is in a way relevant to the discussions today also, because industry's perspective can at times be colored or blinkered because of their need or the profit motive which drives it. But anyway, it's useful to have the other side of the story. The draft national policy on security, and this was what I mentioned just now, cyber security and surveillance. Is surveillance justified for cyber security purposes? These were the questions which were dealt with yesterday. Today we'll have again 4 sessions. The current framework for data protection in India, are they adequate? That was the first session. Then a comparative analysis of data protection frameworks. Where does India stand in relation to other countries, especially as in the European Union and the United States? Future frameworks for data protection in India, how do they define privacy for India? And lastly, government schemes, data protection and security, what is missing? I hope to participate in the last one. The other 3 will be dealt with other panelists. And again, I must congratulate Jasraj and his team for an excellent way in which Day 2 has also been structured. Now, from a layperson's perspective today, my generation and technology was totally different from what I see here. I belong to a much older generation, almost look like a fossil, when in those days life was rich and living was quite cheap. Nowadays life is cheap and living is quite costly, which is what you're experiencing. And if I may crack what is called a military joke, laptop was a place where you kept your girlfriend. And today's meaning of laptop is something totally different. Laws are when we look at the theme for today and yesterday, laws are only as good as their implementation. So there is a whole focus in this conference, and naturally so because this is a law institution, on the making of law. But I think as legal professionals, it would be useful to also look at how do we ensure that the laws made are properly implemented. And I think in the course of the day, some of the panelists could possibly look at, when you look at the framework, there has to be a framework for implementing the law properly. If a case takes 20 years, and you're talking of data protection, what happens during the 20 years? The law is meaningless. And then you have, the question is, the law is to protect what? The title is very interesting, data protection. Should it protect only data or people? Or does protection of data involve protecting people? What does it mean? So I think we should look at people as the primary focus. You need to protect people, and one part of protecting people is protecting their data. And what does their data mean? And that's very important. What does the data of a person mean? Is it my medical record? Is it my crime record? Is it my school record? What is it? Or is it my name, address, and mobile number? What do you mean by data? So I think when you talk of data protection, we must know that in this context, it is the protection of data of people in order to protect people. Again, it's very nice on a Sunday morning to sit here in a nice air-conditioned room, drinking coffee and listening to all this and exchanging brilliant ideas. But there are a number of words in India. The people for whom this law is applicable are all Indians. Now, about 300 million of our people do not have one meal a day. What does data protection mean to them? What does privacy mean to a village woman who has only one sari and she washes one half while covering her nudity with the other? Does privacy, in the manner in which we talk, have any meaning at all? How do we ensure that these laws protect those people, the vulnerable sections? So let us not have just a middle class point of view of the law, the legality, and so on and so forth, but look at people in all the worlds which are available in India. There is the hyper-rich world, the stratified billionaire class with 27-story buildings in the heart of Mumbai with the helipad on top. That's one class. There's the class like you and me, and then there is the other. I think we should be very much concerned when we talk of data protection, IT Act rules, etc., about such people. Then we talk, I would like to, in this context, mention identification, the use of technological fixes, terrorism, cyber threats, legal frameworks, and their remedies. This has become a fact. We talk of terrorism, etc., as a reason for a lot of these technological interventions. And then, what is government? We talk of government as if it is some kind of an impersonal entity out there, which is faceless, anonymous, and does certain things for us. In fact, when I asked my granddaughter, she's an MBA, she's working somewhere, I asked her, what do you understand by government? She had no clue. And I'm sure most of us here have got some vague idea of what a government is. So when we talk in terms of cybersecurity, which are national assets, which are stewarded by governments, we must understand what is government. Government is of, by, and for the people. They are our representatives to do something for us. They are no longer rulers. So please do not approach these subjects from the point of view that, oh, government has to protect us. Government has to give us security so they can do certain things. How many of you here would like to hand over the keys of your home to the nearest police station? Anybody please raise your hands? They are supposed to protect you, aren't they? No hands up. Anybody would like to hand over your keys of your home to the nearest nearest police station? Why don't we do it? But when we talk of government, oh, they're supposed to provide security, therefore they can do X, Y, Z. They are our representatives. The GPA, the power of attorney holder, they are something like your constituted attorney. They are to do your bidding. But what happens is you can see them on TV, they behave like rulers, feudal lords. And that is very dangerous when we talk in terms of framing laws to be implemented and administered by people with a different kind of mindset. How do you take into consideration this understanding of democracy and government while framing those laws and while setting up institutions or changing existing institutions in order to implement those laws? I wish somebody would address that either today or in the near future. The next thing is, if laws are cannot be implemented properly and justice is not available to many people, what is the purpose in making the law at all? It's a futile theoretical exercise. So I think simultaneously we need to move from all this talk into action. And my request to all of you today, the younger generations particularly, would be to start a movement. Let us understand, it's unfortunate that our judicial system is totally broken down. Access to justice is minimal. A poor person cannot knock at the doors of a court. Just now an advocate was telling me he was representing some people accused of crime, and every time that accused came to consult him and went back, he was arrested by the police. And when he was checking, he found that the police were tapping the advocate's phone in order to find out when the accused is coming to his house. In fact, please look at this very carefully. Justice is denied to that third world which exists inside India today. And even to the average middle class, justice is extremely costly. The system itself ensures that you keep on going to the court every day and come back with no result. In fact, I just cannot even understand why are we not addressing this. I was talking to, a couple of years ago, to a former Chief Justice of this country. And I told him, sir, you should launch a movement for changing the judicial system. So he looked at me and very strangely and said, look, I have a 40-year experience with the judicial mafia. These were the words of a former Chief Justice of this country. Now, if that is the situation, laws do not help at all. You need to change the system of implementing the laws, make access to justice. And even an understanding of what is justice, I think you must read Amartya Sen's book, An Idea of Justice. Beautiful, highly philosophical, but it gives you a lot of ideas on what justice is all about. And that, I'm afraid, is not being addressed at all. So let us move from all this talk into action. Yesterday, I think one of the students here accepted a suggestion by the previous panel that they will take this forward and do some action. So my request to all of you is, form a small society. Call it a movement for overall of judicial system. Simple things. We are talking of today technology for identification of welfare delivery. Why not technology for justice delivery? I don't know, many of you would have gone inside courts. Half the day, or more than half the day of the court is wasted in what is known as call work. 100, 150 cases are listed every day in a court of law. And simply those numbers are called out and a new date given. Why do that at all? And the poor advocate runs from one court to another. He is in Mayor Hall at 10 o'clock, he is in Kaveri Bhavan at 12 o'clock, he is in the High Court at 2 o'clock. And why this at all? Can't we use technology to solve this? A simple scheduling system. We talk of digitization and computerization of courts. What have they computerized? They have simply put in all scanned and put in some of this data. You can have a simple scheduling system and every court will gain half a day per day. In productivity, you can imagine what it means. These are simple technological interventions which would help improve the justice system. Much more needs to be done. So my request would be do that. Government and rule of law. Now the question is, we make laws, but if we can't make laws, we can suggest to the government to make laws. But if the lawmakers break law, who is to bell the cat? And if the government is acting outside the pale of law, in many cases they do, what do we do then? Have an Arab Spring or an Occupy Wall Street? What is the use of advocating law? This is my question, when there is criminalization of politics. So that's an issue one needs to tackle. It's interesting, when we talk of criminalization of politics, how many of you know what percentage of our legislators are either convicted of heinous crimes, or how many of them are under trial? Any idea? Our MPs. How many MPs are either convicted or under trial? No. Any idea? What percentage of our members of parliament are convicted criminals under appeal or under trial? 1 in 4. Every fourth MP of all parties is either a convicted criminal or under trial. And these are not the section 144 or some such thing. We're talking of heinous crimes: murder, arson, loot, rape, forgery, cheating. These are the kind of crimes that you're talking of. Now, I often see on television panelists, political panelists say, oh, all you can't just brush all with the same tar and say that all politicians are criminals. Now, what would you call a person who's closely associated with a criminal? What would you call such a person? Pardon? Accomplice, absolutely. We don't have in our law an accessory after the fact, right? But they are exactly that. If a political party is giving tickets to convicted criminals or people under trial, it is, unimaginable. I cannot imagine how one can do that. There is a home minister of a state charged with extortion and murder. Right? He is given a ticket, he gets elected. And he is now being given charge of the elections of that party in the largest state of the country. What law will work? He was a deputy home minister, and the home minister happens to be the chief minister himself. And this is not one party. All parties are the same. All political parties, that's what I'm saying. When lawmakers become lawbreakers, you need solutions other than suggesting laws. Yes, by all means suggest laws. But suggest laws which will rein in these people. Another thing which I often find, every TV panelist, political parties panelists will say, how many more minutes do I have? Jasraj, how many more minutes do I have? 5 minutes? So, the principle of innocent and unless proven guilty, or until proven guilty, is used to stay in office. Now that principle applies to a penal proceeding. It does not apply to the holding of public office. If you apply the principle of a penal process to the holding of public office, the entire edifice of democracy collapses. You can't have like it's now you say the BCCI chief, Srinivas, should he stay in office or not? The minister, the law minister, and the Colgate, and the Supreme Court affidavit, the Attorney General, should they stay in office pending the investigation? You can't have this principle of innocent until proven guilty for holding public office. So when we talk in terms of data protection, cybersecurity and so on, there is no point in having somebody to protect your data who is sitting there because of this principle that he has got a heinous crime against him or her, but is there because of this principle that they are innocent until proven guilty. Now, accountability for what happens? Okay, you form a law saying that this should be done, that should be done. Where is the accountability? Is there any law which provides somebody says I've lost the data of several lakhs of people. What is the accountability? What law can remedy that? And if as a consequence of that compromise of data, the person suffers, how can that person be compensated? These are issues which I think the panels could possibly. Questions on government schemes and data protection. UID, it's branded. I do not know why a government scheme or project should have a brand name. A brand name is used for marketing either a product or a company. You associate certain brand names, that what you call share of mind, as they call in marketing parlance. Why do you need a brand name for if you're doing good to a person, welfare? I don't think you need a brand name. I mean, will I accept money only if it is branded as Aadhaar? I'll accept money of any color. Right? So you don't need a brand name anyway. This is something which I leave to the audience as a bait or a hook so that you stay here during the day, spending the Holy Sabbath here. Is UID an ID card or a mere number in a database? If it is not an ID card, why do people, media refer it to as a card? Everybody talks of Aadhaar card. Why are they saying, is it first of all a card? If it is not a card, why is media, and everybody calls it, somebody will put up a photo and say Aadhaar card. Why are they doing it? Why is UIDI not clearing this ambiguity? They are not categorically said, no, it's not a card. It's very interesting. UIDI wanted to make a card, but then they held back. I promise anyone who gives the right answer by evening, in this audience, I promise you that you will have a nice treat from me. And if you can't give the answer, I'll try and do that. Lastly, I want to make a small announcement, kind courtesy of my hosts here. We had made a monograph sometime in September last year on UID. It's available for sale at 100 rupees. This is to meet the costs of the person who donated the money for me to print those, the printing costs. Those interested may please buy it. And I would request those who take it, kindly give your contact details if you like. And the reason is, we'd like to be in touch with you in order to carry out a campaign on bringing out the truths about UIDs. It's available there, and the title of the monograph is UID is Not Yours. Thank you.
To begin the day with so many questions, because that is what we're going to do, find many answers during the day, and hopefully, if not find answers to everything, at least raise the relevant questions. So moving on with our first session, which is going to be on current frameworks for data protection in India. Are they adequate? The session is going to be moderated by Mr. Bhairav Acharya, and I would like to welcome